I like reading fiction, but the thing that really captivates me, and one thing that I've always enjoyed talking to you about here, is these blurry lines between fiction and reality. You know,
Yes,
I like
agreed.
I like swimming in the area where you're like, that can't be true, but it's truthful or truthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you're in that zone, it's fun to mess around and play around. If for not for any other reason, then it can be sometimes a little numbing to watch conventional politics play out year after year after year. You know, Republicans are going to hit Democrats with tough on crime rhetoric, and Democrats are going to emphasize abortion rights. And you get caught up in these social discourses that have been operating for decades. And it's kind of like, you know, they're kind of predictable. And then to the extent that they're not, you know, like we're going to look at a suburban voter in a swing state, in a swing city, on a swing road, driving a swing car. And we're going to ask them who they're going to vote for.
It's also fucking boring and depressing. And you get to be like, this can't be all of it, right? And that's, it's interesting because it's like that, you know, it was in that consciousness and that sort of landscape of like the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis and like, you know, those sorts of things that, you know, young people legendarily started taking LSD and around American colleges, and there was sort of like this generation that had that experience. And you know, you talk about the American counterculture. You know, one sort of element of that is psychedelic experimentation and a sort of engagement with consciousness. Mm-hmm. That I would throw that in the mix because the consciousness element is everywhere, and that word, I mean. I live in Southern California, so like the Center for Consciousness Studies and like all that word is kind of everywhere. But also, you know, it's the planetary element and the sort of the idea of like the alien UFO story gives us a sort of trap door out of that sort of mundane, even apocalyptic but boring apocalypse reality. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the boring apocalypse is that like the fucking dudes from Dr. Strangelove blow us all up. And they're just like office worker drone types that just are like press the button and that's the end of the world. Like what a boring story. Like it's not even worthy of anything like a Shakespearean tragedy. But then like the alien story gives us something a little more like
new characters and new situations.
Yeah, right. And even a way out. Like I mean, I guess the thing I was kind of thinking about is how much you and I, you know, in our Chomsky trilogy, we're talking about how so much of Chomsky's work is informed by this sort of doomsday ideas, particularly around climate change and nuclear war. And that's kind of part of an engagement with his politics that you can't really escape. But aliens, I think, are a way that people talk about those things and ways out of those things. I mean, it was explicit in this documentary that the aliens that are being perceived by this group that want to see them as something other than just war of the worlds that are coming to blow us up. They're like, they see them more as like these guardians, and they have a narrative that is essentially that they're intervening on human history because of climate change and nuclear war. In other words, there's this